I'm here with Miss Ogden. Miss Ogden, what made you want to work with students at Freeport High School?
I just think young people are interesting, and I actually love our students here at Freeport High School because we have such a diverse group of students.
What drove you to come to Freeport?
I actually came to Freeport kind of against my will initially. My now ex husband got a job here, and so we moved here. But I've chosen to stay and raise my own family here and really like living here.
What teacher or was there somebody who influenced you to start teaching?
Probably the teacher that influenced me the most was my mom. She was an elementary teacher, mostly fifth grade, for over 40 years. And so I just kind of grew up around education and teaching.
I'm here with Mr. Winker. Mr. Winker, what influenced you to work with students at Freeport High School?
Well, I had a couple of really good teachers when I was in junior high, especially in high school. And when I got to college, I decided I wanted to major in history, and I only had a couple options.
What drove you to come to Freeport?
Well, it was a 1987 Chevette.
Mr. Winker, let me rephrase the question. What made you want to come to Freeport?
Oh, well, I applied for a whole bunch of positions. This was in the early 90s, 1991. And Freeport called me. They were the first school to call me. I got 3 phone calls on the same night for interviews, and I came to Freeport. That was the first one, and I was offered the job the next day.
Who inspired you to become a teacher?
Well, I had a one teacher who stands out in my memory was Mr. Myers, who taught junior high history and social studies. Had him in seventh and eighth grade, and at that time there was a lot going on in the world, and I was already, even as a 12, 13, 14 year old, pretty interested in that. And
Mr. Jackson, what inspired you to work with students at Freeport High School?
Wow, that's a good question. What inspired me is just the passion I have just to see young people be successful and young people to reach their full potential. That's something that I had in my life as mentors and teachers and coaches.
What made you want to come to Freeport?
Well, I would say what made me, I would say what my desire to come to Freeport, I would say, is my future wife, which is my current wife. She was living in Freeport, and I was currently playing basketball overseas in Europe at the time. And we got engaged, and at the end of one of my seasons there, I decided to move here. And then when I've been here, I was like, it's not a bad spot. I love being here. I love the area, um, and I fell in love with Freeport, and then the rest is history.
Was there someone who influenced you to, be a mentor to students? And
The biggest influence in life is my parents. They was the biggest influence. But the one person that I would give some credit to is my speech teacher, Miss Peggy Atterbury. A lot of folks don't know this. I was a special ed student, and I was in speech class and had a really bad stuttering problem. And this speech teacher of mine, this may sound bad, but as living in Chicago and the teacher walking in, blonde hair, blue eyes, looked at me and said, "You don't have a behavior problem, you have a speech problem, and we can fix that." And the rest is history.
here, Mr. Hurst, right now, Mr. Hurst, what inspired you to become a teacher in general?
Uh, what inspired me to become a teacher? I started coaching Little League, and I was like, kids are all right. I could work with kids. Didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grow up, so decided I'd give teaching a try, and here I am, 20 years later.
What drove you to come at Freeport specifically?
Well, I was at home, a little bit older than all of my friends. And we were home for the summer from college. And once the summer ended, they all went back to college, and I was left in my little podunk town by myself with nothing to do. I know it's going to sound odd. I opened up a newspaper. I saw a job listing. I drove to Freeport. I lied quite a bit in my interview, and they hired me.
Who inspired you to do your job? Was there like a mentor when you in your high school, or what was going on?
It's actually interesting. I had a teacher who was a history teacher, even though I don't teach history. He was my favorite teacher. His name was Mr. Wright, and he was a middle school history teacher, and he retired from the school I went to, and he ended up teaching at the college I ended up going to, and I really always enjoyed the way he taught. He would just basically stand up in front of the room and tell stories, and you'd walk out of the room and you'd like he just talked for an hour, but I learned so much, and you don't even realize it. I still remember the stories he would tell. And he kind of inspired me, and I wanted to be like him.
I'm here with Mr. Fisher right now. Mr. Fisher, what inspired you to become a teacher?
I think it started pretty early on for me. Both my next door neighbors on each side growing up had Down syndrome, and they were always put in whatever class I was, and I had to modify and help them and get them through a lot of the lessons and stuff throughout the day. So that was always a big factor. And then when I was in sixth, seventh grade, I had this amazing basketball coach, and I knew that I was never going to play college or professional basketball, but I love basketball, and I knew that teaching was also an avenue to being able to coach and do some of the stuff that I love. So that was really where it started from.
Of all the schools, why Freeport?
It's a good question. I grew up out in the suburbs and had been out here before in this general area, and I really wanted a town that was smaller. The town that I grew up in and then was working in was about 150,000 people. And I just wanted a town that was smaller, and this one kind of appealed to me most. And there was openings. So I gave it a shot, and here I am.
Was there anybody that influenced you as a young adult, like a mentor that inspired you to help other kids?
I think I'm going to have to go back to that same basketball coach because he was also my junior high teacher. So he was a math teacher, just a fun guy. He had something where before every single test, the kids were able to crinkle up a piece of paper. And if you shot it and made it into like a basket, you got an A and didn't have to take the test. So he was always doing kind of dumb, fun things like that. And I realized then, I could kind of do both. And that was something I was interested in.